Hey everybody, it's Last Week from the Table for August 18th, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Alright, every week here on Last Week from the Table, we take a look back at the week that was in the two actual play games that I run every week, and there's going to be a third sooner rather than later. I don't know exactly when, because I'm in the midst of recruiting players for it. Or actually, that's not quite true. I need to start recruiting players for it this week. But it's the reboot of my History of D&D concept. We're going to do it a little bit differently. Lessons learned from the struggles that we had last time I did this, and also lessons learned from the successes we had with the Thursday night game. So there's something a little bit special that I'm going to do with this, and we will talk about that on a future session of Last Week from the Table. But for right now, we are going to dive into our discussion of the two games that I'm currently running. On Thursday nights, we do the Sword Coast Chronicles, and right now, the party are in running through the low levels of the Tyranny of Dragons campaign, and they are in a world of hurt. They helped Greenest. They scouted the cultist camp, and they rescued the monk. They went back to Greenest. Then the monk told them that he learned that they have dragon eggs in that camp, and they're being held in that cave. And they need to go and see if they can't destroy those dragon eggs, because if the cult of the dragon gets a hold of more, is able to hatch more live dragons, okay, then that's going to be even worse for the people in the area surrounding Greenest and the green fields. So off they went back to do that. The previous session, they went into the cave, fought their way in about a third of the way into the cave, got to a fork, killed all the resistance they met up until that point, and we started the session by them trying to figure out which way to go. Well, they saw a big open area that had the mist and a bunch of fungi and everything like that. So they thought, well, that looks like it's humid and warm. That's probably where dragon eggs would be. So they went in that direction, and they never found the eggs, but they did find the rest of the resistance. The rest of the resistance, which includes a whole mess of kobolds, a whole bunch of cultists, and two of the leaders of the cult of the dragon in this area. They're not like the main leaders of the entire cult, but they're the leaders of this particular encampment, and they're pretty tough in their own right. So it wound up being a situation where the one of the leaders got into combat and took down the bard in the party, and she had her heavy-bladed halberd at his neck, and she called for the rest of the party to drop their weapons and surrender, or else she was just going to murder the bard. And I really didn't know what was going to happen in that moment, because these players have been playing together for about 6 months, but this is a fairly new campaign and fairly new characters for them. I didn't know whether they were just going to be like, "Oh, let's see if we can't kill this person," but they actually decided they were going to surrender. And so the session ended with a montage of them being taken prisoner and put into a holding area that the cult has. They're stripped of all their weapons, stripped of all their armor, stripped of all their possessions. Yes, the rogue did manage to roll to hide a dagger in his boot and was successful, so he gets to keep a dagger. But other than that, everybody had to give up everything. And they uh, they are now being held. And also, I indicated that yeah, they're going to be tortured a little bit. They're gonna, and I said that they take each one of you in and beat you, and when you come out, you are at 1/4 of your full hit points. You're battered and you're bruised, and they didn't ask you any questions. Um, it just seems like this was just sort of a, okay, you're our prisoners now. We're going to treat you however we want to. So that was what happened to them. This session, well, they'll probably have some long conversations with some of these leaders, figure out what they're going to do, and we'll see what this campaign turns into. This campaign may turn into, hey, Cult of the Dragon just recruited all these all these high-powered adventurers, and now they're working for us. Or the campaign may turn into, it may be the heroes against the evil, just as it was intended, or as it started out, I should say. I like keeping a little bit sandboxing. Yes, I know that the way these stories are written, they're intended to be the heroes against the evil, but there's enough stuff going on. You could very easily turn the tables and put the party in the role of what the bad guys are supposed to do, and they're having to fight every week the adventurers that are coming to try to stop the party or try to stop the interests of the cult. So we'll see what happens. I have some ideas percolating. I hope it'll be fun for them, and this is a good group of players, and they enjoy the RP. So I think they'll enjoy having that. And I keep all of my games PG-14, so or PG-13, I should say. So that, it's not we're not gonna uh, go too crazy with the torture things on them. All right, and on Sunday, Walker of Waterdeep at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the Planeswalking campaign where they are visiting different planes from the Magic the Gathering game. Right now, they're in Innistrad. And over in Innistrad, they have completed all their work at the Rathridge mine. They have secured the mine, left the miners to get to work, and they have gone over to the Dressic Bog where they are supposed to find the memory shard that they were sent here to get. And when they got to the bog, Adamant remembered, after a couple of helpful rolls from the DM, Adamant remembered, oh yeah, I have that thing that the Izzet League gave us that'll show us how to get to the memory shard once we get within range. And it led them to an area that they had seen in their dreams. They had all seen dreams that included this big gothic-looking house, and several of them saw sinister figures in that house, and one of them actually had an item stolen by one of those sinister figures in their dream, and when they woke up, it was really gone in real life. So, yeah, those people apparently have some magics, apparently have some powers. Um, And they skirted around the house thinking, okay, we're not gonna get into a fight with these guys if we don't have to. And they went up to the tree stump that Oyahusa had seen in his dream, where there was a blue glow, and Adamant's little detector was saying that's where the memory shard is. So they went and they found that place, and as they started to reach in to grab it, these hands started coming out of the murky water, and stood up in front of them was a Scab Goliath. A Scab Goliath is a monster out of the Magic the Gathering game from the Innistrad block, and it is described as a zombie, but like an enormous zombie that's composed of multiple corpses of multiple humans that have been sewn together by corpse stitchers. These necromancers that call themselves corpse stitchers, and they often have multiple heads, and they have way too many arms and weird configurations of body parts and things like that. So there's this grotesque thing that's like 15 feet tall that they are about to have to fight. And they disturbed that right at the end of the session. So they're like, yeah, let's just not start the fight now. Let's come back and start that fight next week. So they have an enormous fight to look forward to. On the way to that house, they were actually passing through when they first got to the bog. And they reached the bog in the evening of one night, and then they basically had to travel the entire next day to get to where they were going. So when they got to the bog and made camp with the Darren's Instant Fortress, um, during the first watch, two of them noticed something move. And when I say something, I mean like the ground over there moved. And so they started looking at it, and then about a 20-foot section of the ground just rose up, and they could see that what it was this the first the front part of an enormous worm-like creature that the top of it is camouflaged with like river grass and things like that on it, so that it looks like it's actually part of the marsh itself. And its little grotesque tentacles around its mouth were kind of waving around, and it was like sniffing the air. And then it turned in the direction of the tower where these two were sitting on the roof, and it began making its way over. And as it moved, they realized that this entire creature is about 50 feet long, and the Darren's Instant Fortress is only about 30 feet high. So they hightailed inside the fortress, alerted everybody else, and the thing seemed kind of curious, mostly because this is a big, huge metal box, and yet it can smell food inside the box. But the Darren's Instant Fortress is impervious to all non-magical attacks, and this creature doesn't have any magical attacks. I mean, it's not a spellcaster. It's just like a big dumb animal, a huge animal and a powerful animal, but still just a big dumb animal. And so it really doesn't have any way of hurting the tower. So they were like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the barbarian gets the bright idea, oh, I'm going to go jump up on the roof and I'm going to whack it with a weapon. So he jumps up on the roof and he whacks it with a weapon. And of course, the Moldgraf monstrosity, which is what the monster is in Magic the Gathering, it's this ginormous thing. So the template I used for it out of D&D, and I based it on, was the purple worm. So the purple worm has 10-foot reach with its attacks. So this guy is standing there at the edge of the tower trying to hack at this thing, and it just simply makes an attack roll with its bite. And if you know anything about purple worms, you realize that if you get hit with the bite, you have to make a dexterity save. And this is a barbarian, mind you. So he's not the most dexterous person in the world. And he didn't match the DC. So he got swallowed by the monstrosity. And everybody else was inside the tower, and they're all going, "Oh my god, I can't believe you went out there." So he got swallowed by the monster, and he is going into the thing's gullet. Then the cleric comes up with an absolutely brilliant idea. Brilliant. And the uh, the cleric decides to cast banishment. And then we all had to take a few minutes to look at not only the rules of the spell as written, but also what the errata was, because none of us, we all agreed that we couldn't tell from the way the spell is written. If a creature swallows another creature, and then the creature that did the swallowing gets banished, what happens to the creature that's been swallowed? Is it considered a separate creature and so does it stay? Or is it part of the creature and would it get banished along with it? And there's so much debate online, and we couldn't find in the few minutes we were looking a definitive answer. So I finally said, all right, enough debate. We'll let the dice settle it. And I asked the player whose character got swallowed, I said, call high or low. And I rolled a d20. And he called high. I rolled a 12. So that's high. And what that means is that when the monstrosity got banished, the the character stayed behind. And so the character just drops prone to the ground where this thing's stomach had been. And the monstrosity goes away. So they grab him, they pull him into the tower, they give him the what for about being dumb enough to go outside. Then they have to figure out what to do when a minute elapses and this thing comes back. So the uh, bard in the party, he says, all right, I have polymorph. And polymorph is a wisdom, and this thing is a dumb animal. I don't think it's got a very good wisdom score, and it doesn't. It's got a horrible wisdom score. And so I'm going to try to polymorph it into just a garden variety turtle because there's a river right over there. And so we all said, all right. So when the minute is over and the monstrosity comes back, the bard goes up to an arrow slit, points his finger out through the arrow slit, polymorph. And sure enough, the monster fails, and it becomes this little bitty turtle. So then one of the characters with winged boots grabs the turtle, flies as fast as they can over to the river, puts the turtle in the river, and lets it start going downstream with the current. Okay, wipe their hands with that. An hour later, however many miles downstream, that turtle's going to turn back into a Moldgraf monstrosity, and it's probably going to attack the shit out of whatever's around it, but at least it won't be the party. So that was one of the most fun and hilarious sessions that we have played in this game. This Walker of Waterdeep tends to get really dark because every place they go is so evil, and Innistrad is an incredibly dark um, gothic plane. So there's a whole bunch of undeath, and there's a whole bunch of madness, and there's demons, and there's vampires, and there's werewolves, and there's all kinds of nasty stuff like that. And so having just a really funny session where a bunch of spells went the right way for the party, and they had some creative use and creative ways of getting out of having a huge fight with a huge enemy. All right, there we go. So good on them for doing that. So they managed to escape that. So I had a lot of fun with that session yesterday, if you can't tell. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen when they fight this Scab Goliath next week. Because the that template that it's based on is a really tough monster too. It's a big solo monster, just like the purple worm is a big solo monster. Um, so we'll have to see how they fare with that. And that's gonna be it for Tales from the Table for this week. Uh, Please join us on Thursday nights or on Sunday afternoons if you can. We'd love to have you. We have reached affiliate over on Twitch. We have a core group of viewers that stop by every week and are watching both of our sessions. Players in both games go and hang out in the chat. So if you come to the game, you can talk with some of the players while the session is going on in the chat. That's really good, and that's very helpful. So, hope you will join us, and remember to always try to make the games at your table memorable so that you can have tales from your table as well. All right. Good night, everybody.